Urza's AI is a website that allows anyone to create fake magic cards using AI. I have been experimenting with the system for a while and have come up with a number of different sets using the deck builder tool. Deck builder, of course, is designed not for sets, it's for decks. And how it works is it loads a preset of sort of the structure of each card, right? It says, I want a card with this mana cost, a card with this card type, and I want that card to fit into the deck with whatever the deck name that you submitted is. We will be editing this template so that it creates a set based off of whatever sort of name we want the set to be. You could have it just be a list of keywords. I'm interested in doing sort of actual set names, but that is a personal choice. And we will be using the mana cost from an actual real set. This is mainly because it's very easy to pick up that data and place it into the deck builder, and then you've got a perfect, like, well-distributed mana cost set based on a real Magic set by real Magic designers. If you wanted to, you could definitely go in there and edit those mana values yourselves, mana costs yourself, so that it is more unique to you and more of a custom set, and that's something I'll probably try in a later video. But for now, we're talking about specifically what I did when I made Eldrazi Oceans, my most recent AI-generated set. First thing you're going to need to do is go to urzas.ai. It's literally urzas.ai, but also if you just Google Urza's Artificial Intelligence or Urza's AI, you're going to find it. You can scroll down and you will find the deck builder option, or you can simply go to urzas.ai/deck. Either way, you're going to make it here and you're going to see this before you. Because I'm paranoid, I always change the deck type to Commander. This is because previously I've seen the deck builder generate duplicates of a card, where it's the same card but with different art, with exactly the same body text and everything. But when I've done Commander, I have not, which makes me think that there's probably some code preventing that from happening because Commander is singleton format. I don't know if that's entirely true. I have not confirmed that with the designers of the website, but I always do that just to be safe. We don't need to fill in the deck name. We don't need to choose the mana color. Those aren't, well, the name is used, but it will be used to populate the template. The color, same thing. It's being used to populate the template. It's not actually looked at once the template is made. So instead, we can just jump straight to the advanced options and JSON template. And this is a blank canvas for us to do what we want with. What we're going to be doing for this specific set is taking the normal format of square brackets, curly brackets, the card data, close curly brackets, do that for every single card, and then a closed square bracket. That's the basic format. Each of the fields on a card has its own formatting, and you could find those other places. What we care about right now is purely the mana cost. Worth mentioning, this is not mana value. If you want to generate a number of cards with specific mana value, there currently isn't a way of doing that other than actually specifying the actual mana cost in colored pips and everything. So just to be aware of that. What we're going to do is we're going to go to Scryfall. Again, there's other sources for this. This is just what I did when I made Eldrazi Oceans. And we're going to go to the sets and find a set that we can use. For Eldrazi Oceans, I used Streets of New Capenna, and that's what we're going to use today as a template. Something to point out ahead of time, there is currently a bug with hybrid mana, and since Streets of New Capenna uses hybrid mana, you will run into that bug. It is not an issue for generating the cards, but the art will be broken. I won't show the mana properly, but since we're using a template with specified mana costs, we know exactly what the mana cost of this card with broken mana is actually supposed to be, so it all checks out. Once you've gone to the sets in Scryfall, you can bring up the cards in a checklist. You're also going to probably want to edit the search term to say something like mana value equal to or greater than 0, just to make sure that you're getting a single copy of every card. Otherwise, you're going to end up with every card and all the different variants of that card, which is not relevant to us. Once you've done this, you've got your full list here. It might be split over a number of pages, so you're going to have to copy this data twice, but basically, you can select all, Control A, and copy that, Control C, and go, and you want to drop it into a spreadsheet. Now, anything that you have available will do. I'm using Google Sheets for this example because it's convenient. Paste that in there, and you will see that even though the checklist shows the mana cost as symbols, the actual data is these curly bracket mana costs. And that is perfect for us because that is the same formatting that Eldrazi AI use. So once we have this spreadsheet of data, we can then simply write a formula to take that data, lift it up, put it into the formatting we need for the JSON. So to do that, we're going to want to start with the beginning of a cards template, which is the curly bracket and then mana cost, colon, quotation mark open, and then we're going to stop writing there. Because then we're going to have the mana cost combined in there in a later formula. Then you're going to want to write the other half of the card, which would be closing that bracket that goes around this mana cost, and then the rest of the thing, which in this case is going to be the deck name, followed by quotation marks, and whatever deck name you want, but in our case, Eldrazi Oceans, and then close that quotation mark. We're then going to close the card brackets using a curly bracket, and we're going to add a comma on the end there. This is just going to make it a lot easier for us to combine these individual card formattings into an entire list of the whole deck. Once we've done that, we're going to want to make in a new cell the formula that combines them. It's just selecting the cell of the beginning of the card format, adding and, the symbol and, ampersand, the cell for the mana cost, ampersand, and then the cell for the end of the card. Stick all that together, and you've got the exact card formatting that you need. What we can actually do is we can go into this formula and we can add a couple of $ around the code for the cell. If you haven't used a spreadsheet program before, this could be a little bit confusing. Basically, you're just seeing a letter and a number combination for exactly what the coordinates of a cell are. Cell meaning, the actual square, column, and row coordinates that data shows up in. And if we take the letter and precede it by a $, and the number and precede it by a $, this will cause the formula to only look at that specific cell, because otherwise, when we copy this text, we will actually have all the other values changing in relation to where the new cell that is being pasted into is. That's a confusing way of saying it, but basically we want to be having the formula update with the different cells of the different data of the mana costs, but always be looking at the same beginning and ending format for the card itself. Once we've done that, we're going to copy that cell. We're going to select all the cells from here to the bottom of the mana cost that we're looking at and paste that. So again, Control-C, Control-V. These values are almost what we need. There's a little bit longer that we're going to take though, and that is because if we just copy this and paste it into the text field of the JSON template, it's going to start breaking. And that's because of the way that spreadsheets handle data versus text fields. If we can combine all of these fields into a single spreadsheet cell, then we won't have that problem because we're not dealing with the formatting of the spreadsheet cells itself. It's just the data of a cell. I know that sounds like needless distinction, but just go with me on this. To do this, we're going to make another cell. We're going to say equals concatenate. And this will combine all the cell values of all the cells in a specified range. And that range will be just the entire column that we just made. Just clicking at the top there, selects the whole column. Click enter on that, and the resulting formula will be combined into one cell, which we can then copy and paste directly into the JSON template. The last thing we need to do is we need to go to the beginning of this and add a square bracket and the end of this and delete the last comma and then close it with a square bracket. And that is actually it. As you can see with the spreadsheet, we could have gone in and very easily changed these mana values. So this is still a really useful tool, even if you plan on using your own unique mana costs. It's a great way to come up with all these different cells and populate them. But if you want to just grab the mana costs from your favorite set, this is a great, simple way of making a custom set that does have actual decent color distribution and mana value distribution. Once we have put this into our JSON, all we need to do is hit update JSON code. And as soon as you click that, you will notice that for each of the different card formats that are in the JSON, you will be seeing a new blank or face down card on the deck builder page. To actually generate a card, you're going to have to click on them. And that takes a little bit of time, but doesn't actually take as long as you think to click on 200 cards. Go through it, boom, 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 and each one will generate a card. Now for Eldrazi Oceans, I did a little bit of curating. I tried not to have a rule about power level being too high, but I did try and enforce rules about power level being too low. Basically, if this is draft and a card comes around and there's no situation in which you'd ever want to draft it, I figured that was not good enough. And since we had these fixed mana costs, that allows us to reroll these cards without worrying that we're going to be skewing the actual resulting mana cost distribution, mana value distribution, and we can keep trying to see what we can find. If you want to be really strict about your curating, you can go through and try and make sure you're making cards that have proper color pie landings. That's going to take a lot longer, or you can be even looser and not do any of this. I would recommend going through your cards and rolling anything that doesn't function. And what doesn't function is debatable, honestly. Generally, I'd say if a card comes down to the table and you have to make a ruling about how it's interpreted, it's a card that doesn't function. That said, if you want to be designing a unset, suddenly the rules are a bit different, right? Of a card that tells you to put a card in your mouth and chew it, that is now a valid effect because it's an unset, right? So, there's some wiggle room about what counts and what doesn't. And you're going to have to make your best judgment. Something that I do want to mention at this point is that as you're flipping over cards, the JSON file is going to automatically update with an extra line of code that says card ID and then a string of numbers. This is the actual card that you have just generated and where it exists on the Urza's AI server. If you click on the card again, you will generate a new card using the same formatting, but if you copy this JSON file and paste it into a new Urza's AI deck builder tab and say populate from JSON file, you will see that same card again. It recognizes that card ID, which is actually super useful if you do want to take your time and go through each of these cards individually. Previously, I had generated all the 300 cards I was making, exported them, and gone through them as images, as cards, and ruled which ones were usable and which ones weren't. But by not doing that, and instead reviewing the cards while I was still on Urza's AI, I could re-roll them as much as I needed to without having to go back to Urza's AI and download a new card and look at the card and all that stuff. But I initially wasn't sure how I was going to save my progress if I didn't finish reviewing the entire set in one sitting. And this works perfectly well. Just copy your full JSON file after you're done working for the day, save it somewhere, and later you can load up the JSON file and all of those cards that you'd previously okayed will automatically populate because they have that card ID. After you have your full set, you're going to want to click the Download All button. This is a bit weird depending on how your browser is set up. The way that Urza's AI downloads images like this is not in a zip file and all tidy, it downloads them as individual images, which means if your settings on your browser say, ask me every time a file is being downloaded and where I should save it, then you're going to get, 200 requests to save a file in a specific location. What I do is I change my settings temporarily to send my downloads directly to a specific folder that I use as a placeholder folder, and then toggle the change in the settings to say, do not ask me. And you can do this in your settings, depending on your browser. Should be pretty simple to find. Do this, hit the download all, they'll all go into that temporary folder you just set up, then you can change your settings back again so that it doesn't keep downloading new files into that folder. Take those files from that folder, there should all be images, you can then drag them into a different folder where you can actually sort through the image files and do whatever you need doing with them. Worth pointing out is that previously, specifically with Eldrazi Oceans, the first time I downloaded all of the images, some just didn't download. I don't know exactly what was going on there, some kind of bandwidth error or something, but I didn't want to sort through all the cards and find which ones didn't properly download, so I just downloaded them all again and let them replace each other, and then it downloaded all of them, so that was great. You probably are going to want to delete all of those images first, or move them into a placeholder or something before downloading all of your new images, just to make sure you don't end up with duplicates instead of having them replace each other. So, something to be aware of. Shouldn't be an issue. Even if it is, you're going to miss a few cards out of like 300 cards. Not a huge deal, but something to be aware of. Once you have all these cards downloaded, you have the images. You can do whatever you wish with them. I like to import them into Tabletop Simulator, which is something I will talk about the process for sometime in the future. Hope that helps you make your own custom AI sets, and have a lovely night.